The production of this video was made possible by donors to the Orchestration Online Patreon initiative. Please consider adding your support to the creation of free educational internet resources by visiting our Patreon page linked below.
How quickly does a professional composer score an orchestral work?
This is one of those questions that has a different answer, not only for each composer, but also for each individual project. In the history of composing, there have always been stories of great mental focus, in which the entire day's work might be dedicated to a single bar. These stories might even be true, but certainly every single day couldn't have been devoted to only one bar, or the composers involved would never have gotten anything finished on time. What we do know of the working habits of the great full-time freelance composers is that they worked as hard as they could, using their time with great efficiency aided by a high degree of craft. This allowed them to accomplish as much as possible in the least amount of time, just like any other profession. All the same, there's no set gauge on creativity. The only thing you can count on is that the faster that you can intelligently and brilliantly score music, the more of it you can accomplish professionally. This means that film composers often work at a furious pace, scoring hours of cues over the course of a year. Some of this is accomplished with the assistance of a team of orchestrators and copyists, but even so, it's still very quickly done. This is not to say that you have to be a fast worker in order to be a professional composer, but merely that there are certain realities that apply to certain genres. One of the great things about orchestration is that it's a craft as well as an art, meaning that once you understand the process, you may well be able to score many bars a day. Of course, it can take years to get to that point, but every step along the way can prove fascinating and well worth the wait. In fact, that sense of fascination is critical, because without it there isn't enough space in your imagination to drive the passion you'll need to make this a life path. As for me, I tend to tear along as fast as I can go for more reasons than just professional necessity. By this time in my career, I've developed a pace that I naturally gravitate towards. It keeps the process intriguing and rather breathless, like falling out of an airplane with a parachute-building kit and putting all the parts together just in time to float to the ground. But that's just the way I work. It's not a rule or even a guide for other composers. But it does mean that I can compose and orchestrate rather quickly. An original 10-minute work might take anywhere from a week to a month. An hour's worth of original music might require 3 months to a year. Pure orchestration is much, much quicker. I can score out several minutes of score in a day or two, like a crossover score, film cue, or adaptation. This speed depends on the complexity of the music and the ease of the process. What slows me down the most? Adapting a work by ear while having to score elements in the music that are unclear due to a bad mix. That's extremely annoying, especially when the composer can't supply music XML files, a notation reference, or some sort of breakdown. And yet, somehow the work gets done. Hey there, this is your orchestration tutor Thomas Goss, with just a few more comments on the topic of productivity. It's rather timely to be making this video, as I just completed a 137-page score of crossover orchestrations for an upcoming program called Songs of Moana. This show teams up the Polynesian music group Te Vaka with orchestras around New Zealand, performing their original songs and others that were used in the soundtrack of the Disney animated film Moana. This was an extremely gratifying project for me, as I feel that the music and lyrics are some of the most relevant for today's audience, and also have a certain resonance for the quest that creative artists undertake to find their own individual expression within their own culture. The reason I bring this project up at the end of this video is because this time, I surprised myself at the sheer speed at which I was able to compose the first draft of scoring, which was 7 days' work. Most of the 12 songs were done in pairs, 2 per day, with a couple of the more intricate songs taking a full day each. One day I scored 3 songs in a row. Admittedly, this scoring job involved adapting and expanding music that was already orchestrated to a degree, but it wasn't that the work was necessarily easy. It's just that the process of making the necessary decisions about what to score and the physical act of scoring it both went very fast for this job. Of course, there's still quite a bit more to do. In a job like this, I tend to send mock-ups to the group for final approval. They may wish to change a bar here or there, add a chorus, or even alter the order in which the songs are performed. Once I get all the changes, if any, then I finalize the score. The parts for the Moana project were prepped with general layouts for each song during that initial 7-day period, but now I'll finalize them, adding repeat bar marks, splitting wind and brass instruments into separate parts, and creating a general percussion score. Then my work is pretty much done, except for consulting during the rehearsals if I'm asked to. I'm not putting this information about my own projects out there to toot my own horn, because I have better things to do. But the question often gets asked in the Orchestration Online community by developing composers. How long does it take to compose a piece of orchestral music, or orchestrate existing music? And the only way to answer that in the end is to point out that orchestration is about making a series of decisions. Just because those decisions take less and less time to make doesn't mean that the work is necessarily easy, just clearer. And that's a good thing, because the faster I can go, the better I can provide for my family. Don't expect that kind of speed to happen overnight. It might take a long time to get to the point where you're blasting through many pages of orchestration per day. The speed that I used for the Moana project was based on many years of experience, not to mention a lot of ear training and musical theory. Even at that, I learned a few new things myself as I was studying and reinterpreting the scoring of the original arrangements. Hollywood has some of the best orchestrators in the world.